take you to that developing story where at least two South Sudanese opposition leaders allied to former Vice President Riek Machar have allegedly been rounded up by Kenyan authorities awaiting deportation. Human rights groups are now raising concerns over the continued detention of lawyer and activist Dong Samuel Luak and chairman of the SPLM-10 Agri Idri. Let's now bring in lawyer Eddy Orinda joining us. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. What is so wrong with the detention, and what would be your response to if the two were to be deported to South Sudan?
If I could just give a little background.
Yes.
About 2 o'clock on Monday, I got a call from a contact in Tanzania informing me about the disappearance of Samuel Dong Luak and requested that I look into it, which I did, made contacts with authorities. The family also filed a report about his disappearance. Apparently, he was last seen in town around 9 o'clock on Monday. Coincidentally, about 24 hours later, Agri Idri, Esbon, also disappears when he leaves for his morning jog at about 8 o'clock and doesn't return home to date. So until now, we do not have any information regarding the whereabouts of these two individuals. I have personally made contact with the police and the CID.
Are the police giving any information whatsoever?
Well, I would say a lot of ignorance has been feigned on their disappearance, but then my view and the view of the family would be that 48 hours have since elapsed. So it would only make sense that investigations are open to establish the whereabouts of these two individuals. They have been known to be very vocal critics of the government back at home. There has been public information through their Facebook posts and other social media forums. And so it is something that would be highly regrettable should it turn out that they're actually being held by the Kenyan authorities.
All right, I have just spoken to Jonathan Bednold from the Human Rights Watch a few minutes ago, and he says that Mr. Samuel is a refugee. Therefore, what they are worried about is that the Kenyan government will deport them unlawfully, he says, to South Sudan. What about the case of Idri?
Precisely. It is public information that Samuel is a refugee under the protection of UNHCR in Kenya. Idri isn't. Idri has been residing in Kenya in a personal capacity and is known to be the head of humanitarian affairs for the SPLM back at home.
Yes.
My concern whether Idri enjoys the same status as Samuel or not would be that based on Kenya's obligations under international law, particularly the protocols that define how we should relate to the status of refugees, protection of their human rights, and so on and so forth, would be that if we give up individuals solely on the grounds that have been cited, that they don't meet the refugee requirements, yet back at home they face a possible torture, inhuman and degrading treatment, and arbitrary detention, then that would be contrary to the very values that we subscribe to under these international treaties. Right. What I would have expected was that if they are alleged or are being accused of having committed certain offenses, that they would be formally charged and brought before the courts.
Right,
so then the public could be aware of the grounds for deportation.
All right.
And therefore a debate would follow as to whether that is necessary or not, and whether Kenya is obliged to follow its commitments.
All right. Yeah. As their lawyer, what next now?
Well, unfortunately, until now, we've not been very lucky to get any helpful information from the authorities. I'm planning this afternoon to file a habeas corpus application to have them produced in court, charged if they have to be charged, and follow it up from there on. But as it is, it's very difficult to do anything else, considering I do not have an idea of where they're being held, for what reasons, and whether or not they've already been deported. That is not information that's within my knowledge.
All right, final question. I'll ask something I asked Mr. Bednold. Where does there have been allegations that South Sudanese politicians play politics from here in Kenya, while they can't go back home, they play politics from Nairobi. Where does the government draw the line between, its human rights obligations and trying to do the right thing according to Juba?
I think we must draw those lines based on what international law provides for and what our own laws say about offenses of that nature, if they exist at all. Because an argument may be made that a refugee does not enjoy under the AOU protocol rights to participate in political activities, but these actions are not within the meaning of that clause. In fact, where those activities are non-violent, refugees enjoy the same free speech status to express what they feel about their country, what they feel about the situations that they face, regardless of whether they're in their home countries or in recipient countries that have offered them asylum. So I think that is where the line has to be drawn as to whether the political activities that my clients have been involved in warrant that kind of action. And my reading of the law is that it's non-violent and therefore does not arise.
All right.
And therefore is not a ground for deportation.
So what you're telling us, you're assuring us that you have received no communication whatsoever from the government?
No communication whatsoever. They have neither denied nor confirmed, and therefore we can only assume, based on what happened last November with Mr. Dek,
yes,
that it is highly likely that they will be deported back at home. It would be very unfortunate because that may also have a backlash depending on how that deportation may be perceived by people back in South Sudan.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ben.
Eddy Orinda, lawyer for the two. Of course, it is a developing story. We are keeping an eye on the detention of lawyer and activist Dong Samuel Luak and chairman of the SPLM in opposition, Agri Idri. We are keeping an eye on that for you here on KTN News. Let's now cross borders a bit.